What's up, ladies and gentlemen? DGL7 is here, and I actually have a very anticipated, personally, interview with Ayesha over here. Now, the thing is that I'll actually let you introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Chaplain Ayesha Kreutz. Um, I am a um, activist, mother, um, child of the one true living God, and I do a lot of political consulting. I work with the Frederick Douglass Foundation. Actually, I just came from a meeting, so I'm in my shirt. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I do a lot of pro-life work. I have been consulting on various political campaigns for the last 15 years or so, and just try to do whatever I can to help make my community, my state, and my nation better.
Cool.
That's it.
I really appreciate that. Yeah. Now, the thing is that this is actually the online activist interview series. And the thing is, I ask all the activists the same questions. So the thing is that you may be interested in the questions that I ask, if how other activists answer those questions, and feel free to go and look at that. Yeah. The first half of the interview is getting to know about you, and then the second half of the interview is really like learning about your, different ideologies and understanding of activism. Okay,
Sure.
so let's get to this. So the thing is that everybody starts their activist journey in different ways. Was there something that made you political? I know that you're also a chaplain, right? Is it part of your religion? What got you started on this whole journey of political stuff?
Um, to be honest, it was when I turned 18 and my first vote, I just voted the way that everybody I knew voted. And after I had pulled the lever the first time, I was like, maybe I should know about who I'm voting for instead of just kind of taking advantage of, how my mom, my sister, my brother, how everybody else votes. And that was it. And at the time, Rush Limbaugh was on the radio. He had just been, started coming on, and I didn't like him. And there was, you'd hear a lot of sound bites from of of him and coming out. I grew up in Key West, a bunch of hippies and atheists, and my dad was a Black Panther. So maybe it was just always in my blood to be activist, but it was just really about questioning. And then I started listening to Rush Limbaugh because I wanted to be able to really counter his points. Um, Again, I just thought he was a despicable human being based on the things that news were coming out. And after about a month or so, I was like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's actually a Democrat. He's not a Republican, and he doesn't understand. And then that kind of really started my journey, I think,
Okay.
to how I got where I am today.
Which points was he making that you felt that you had to oppose?
Well, again, I was listening to sound bites that were coming out, about, um, like they would take little pieces of what he was saying. And then, so for me, he was being very hateful. Some of he was just funny. They would take some of his parodies and stuff where he was, making the absurd. Um, he was making fun of people in a funny, absurd way, and they would take it and make it like this is what he was really saying, and never, but I didn't know that at the time. So again,
Okay.
you would have things like, you know, that you should, when they're do the thing of pushing grandma off the cliff and different things like that. Not
I don't
taking
remember
care,
that. Okay.
yeah, not taking care of people, all of these things. And then when you would go back and listen to the whole thing, a lot of times he was making fun of the the left and saying, like, kind of like, this is what they're doing, blaming it on us. But again, I didn't know all of that before I started listening to him. And so I just was taking what those sound bites were, taking it for real. And then people would say to me, well, that's not really what he said. And then I
Hmm.
took that kind
Okay.
of as a challenge because I was like, well, if that's not what he said, I probably should know the full story of what
One
is being
one thing you
said.
did say, one thing you did say earlier, right? This does actually lead into my next question. It's a question about your ideology, right? Now earlier you said that you felt like Rush Limbaugh was actually a Democrat and not really a true Republican. So like now, like, what was it about? Have you always been Republican, or like what was? Because you said you were originally from the Black Panthers kind of that lineage, and I know Eldridge Cleaver went Republican, right? So, but generally, I would associate Black Panthers with the left. So, when did this Republican, or is that your primary framing, or is there something else?
I mean, I have a biblical worldview. I think that, so I love history, I love economics, and I love the Bible. Those are, the things, and how those things kind of all mesh together. As far as why I thought he was a Democrat is because growing up, again, my mom, she was a hippie, grew up in Key West. I basically grew up on a hippie commune, but there was always a lot of talk about self-reliance, about, how you don't necessarily need a man, all of those type of feminist type of things. But within that, and again, I didn't understand what I understand today. Within that, when they're talking about how you need to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, right? I don't think they didn't mean it. And to me, when I started listening to Rush Limbaugh, he was talking about things like how you should be self sufficient, how you should be a good neighbor, how it is that we are supposed to function, as good citizens, right? And our
Okay.
civic duty. Part of our civic duty is you being strong as an individual so that you can then be the best you can be for someone else. I think that's really the basics of all of it. And when, and again, I can't give you specific instances just because it's been too long. But so when I was listening to him talk, that's what I heard, right? Really coming out of him is that we're supposed to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. I grew
Okay.
up hearing
Appreciate that.
that. Huh?
I appreciate that. No. I was just really, there are a lot of other pathways I'm actually interested in traveling down during this interview. I do want to try to keep the interview really is framed in all quests. So, political ideology, would you call yourself Republican or conservative? I know you said you were, but is political ideology, some people say socialist, some people say capitalist, um, religious,
I,
some sort of, do you have a political ideology?
yeah. I am. I mean, I'm a conservative Republican. Um, I believe in true capitalism, free market capitalism, not crony capitalism, what we have today. I think we barely have, I mean, we basically have socialism in America today. But as far as, my ideology, yes, I am a biblical worldview,
Okay.
conservative Republican. I also believe, though, that as our founding fathers said, right, a two-party system is kind of the downfall of our nation. And so, although I don't vote, you know, I can't foresee myself voting for a Democrat at this time. I do believe everything should be policy based. If anything, we should get rid of parties altogether. I'd be okay with that. And
Okay.
making people look at people for who they are, what their policies are, where they stand for, and how it actually measures up. I think that's a more important test to
Now,
anything.
the next question is there someone who's particularly influential for you? So the thing is that some people might say, oh, I'm a, like in the Democrats, they might say I'm an FDR Democrat, right? People like to classify themselves and say, oh, I'm this particular faction, right? Maybe it's someone who's influential on you, like as in terms of your thought. Actually, you're the president, I believe, of the Fred Hampton. No, no, I'm sorry, not Fred Hampton. I mean Frederick
Right.
Douglass. Was it Foundation or something?
Yep.
Frederick Douglass. What?
Yep. Frederick
Okay.
Douglass Foundation of New York. Um,
Obviously, a big influence. Maybe not the only one, right? What is the who are your political influences?
Definitely Frederick Douglass, obviously. Thomas Sowell is also huge, huge influence on me. There's also a gentleman, Bob Woodson, who I admire a lot. Reagan, Republican. I mean, Ronald Reagan, I think, is the best president of my lifetime, pretty much any lifetime. He was amazing. Um, and I didn't agree with him all the time. No, guys, there were definitely issues. But again, it's politics. You show me someone I agree with 100% of the time, I'll show you a liar. I barely agree with myself 100% of the time. Okay. Uh, so I
What
would
did he
say
do that you liked though? Like why did Reagan stand out?
I like he was Reagan-esque. I love how he portrayed himself, how he told the allegories, right? It was
I
like,
mean, the
hey,
great communicator thing.
he was a great communicator,
Yeah,
and
he's called the great communicator, right? Yeah, okay.
yeah, but the way, again, when you think about, again, I come from a biblical worldview. Being able to tell a story, to articulate your point, I think is one of the most incredible things that you can do. And of course, his policies were good, right? But he didn't just say, "Hey, here's the policy," like we do today. Oh, yes, you got to make sure that you lower taxes. Why do you got to lower taxes? And he just communicated those things in such an amazing way, while still keeping to the foundation of kind of what it means to be American is at the same time.
I understand. Okay, good to know. Okay. So the next question will be there's different people who come onto this. There have been over 100 interviews with different activists around the nation. And the thing is that people come in here with different levels of accomplishments, levels of experience. What are you most, in the activist field, what are you most proud of achieving?
An activist field, what am I most proud of achieving? I would say
Or
it'd
it
have
doesn't
to
have to
be.
be just one thing. It could be like, a couple accomplishments. But what are your, just so people can really understand what you bring to the table, what your experience background is.
I would have to say it has to do with my pro-life work. I'm post-abortive myself, and that's really how I got started. It's the beginning and end for everything for me. Being able to, saving babies, saving women from their experience through abortion. I do pre and post-abortive counseling, helping candidates be able to message the pro-life issue in a way that, again, can be heard by different factions of people. I think is a very important thing for us to be able to do. You see right now, everybody backing away from it. But I think my biggest accomplishment, I don't do politics for the sake of politics. I do politics for the sake of people, right? It's people over politics. And again, being able to help women, help families be able to overcome that desire, or that feeling of being trapped to have an abortion. It's one of the choiceless choices that we have. And I would say that's it. As far as again, I've helped a lot of candidates get elected. I'm probably not like your typical activist here within Frederick Douglass Foundation. We do a lot of behind the scenes work. We don't care if we get the recognition. We don't care about all of that. My rewards are in heaven. And so, yeah, again, working with like Governor Youngkin and Winsome Sears and Alveda King and, even Trump, all of these things. These are all, I mean, they're not, I'm not saying they're not accomplishments, and being able to work with them, I mean, just because you asked that question, those are, but I wouldn't say they're my most proudest accomplishments, because again, it's about how do we save people? How do we save human beings, give them hope, and turn our world back into a place that we can be proud of living in, right? Cultivating a culture of life and acceptance versus death and rejection. That
Okay,
for me
well,
is everything.
we're about to learn some of that stuff right now because I think we're about to head into the learning about the activism stuff. So let me think if there's any other questions I had to ask in terms of your um, just getting to know yourself. Is there anything else that you want to just say about yourself as in terms of getting to understand yourself as an activist?
Yeah, I mean, I help different. I help train up different leaders, different groups. Again,
Okay.
I believe in that there's not one pie. There's multiple pies. We make a new pie. And when you have different groups, different people, different leaders who want to succeed in something, how do you help them to be the best that they are going to be? And the better leaders that we have, the better communicators that we have, the more successful they are, the more successful we all are. And again, when we're talking about some of my greatest accomplishments, working with all of these multitude of organizations and groups and new leaders, so that they
Okay.
don't fall away in a couple of years. That
I'm actually gonna This is actually a great place to segue into the second half, but just to make some comments about the first half. Aisha, just so you know, I've been following her for a while. She actually has quite a bunch of material. She actually gave presentations at different schools. So I know that she's out there more than just, sitting in her office. She's out there making the rounds. She's actually a chaplain and gets involved with many community organization efforts. Right now, she's working parallel on a progress program called Rep My Block. I don't know if you know that I'm doing that to actually try to engage the community and to actually have a bottoms up movement. So in terms of her talking about training and bringing up other people in the community, there's a lot of synergy here, and we're going to be talking further because I see her as a someone who's from upstate New York. By the way, the sky looks beautiful. Okay. Yeah. So the thing is that like I used to be from up there, right? So the thing is we will be actually possibly even setting up a state a little interest like in state little coalition here, really, to get some things done. So I know you also work with Blexit. You do actually have many, and being a chaplain, you're often called on, and I work as a consultant to do a lot of political things. So we're going to actually head to the second half where we actually learn more about your policies, different ideas, right? Yeah, and the first one's going to be respect once again to your work. You've been an activist for like 20, 30 years now, right?
Maybe at 30, but probably 20. I'll go at 20.
Okay. So the thing is that what do you think are the most effective things activists can do?
The most effective things that activists can do is A, be organized, B, be present. You can't be, you have to know your audience. You have to know who it is that you're speaking to. You have to be able, again, then I'm being effective, right? We want to be effective activists. Being able to keep your message the same, right? You're the standard of your policy the same, but change the messaging to fit who it is that you're speaking to. And again, I always talk about, from a scriptural point of view, Jesus said that we're to be all things to all people. How do you infuse that into your activism work? So if you're not organized and have, you got to be on time, respectful, respect other people's space. I think those things are hugely important, but you also have to be able to meet people where they're at. And if you can do that while not giving up your principles, I think those are probably the most effective things that people can do.
That's cool. I'm actually Christian myself. What type of Christian are you? Do you have a denomination, non-denominational? What are you with that?
Nope. I'm a Bible believing Christian. I believe the whole Word of God, and I follow it. I don't think that anything in the Bible is by accident. I don't think any of it is made up from Genesis to Revelation. I hold the same feast that Jesus kept. I'm not Jewish, but maybe I practice a lot as a Jew in some ways. But no, there's not anything.
I will be asking more about that later on. And shout out to Vigoda D, who's in the chat right now. I know Vigoda actually, I think, is in Israel right now. So Vigoda's been watching the channel. We'll be talking about that later. But I do want to follow the format of the interview, right? So that we can, you can compare the answers to other activists, right? So very cool. So the next question is going to be, the thing is that sometimes people, right, this channel to help people that there's no real, a lot of people don't teach activism. In fact, they really try to suppress activism because they don't want people making trouble or, empowering themselves and, making things inconvenient for the people with the power and the status quo right now is trying to be, preserved for certain people. So the thing is that people join organizations oftentimes seeking help. And, I bet you they come to you, right? You're a chaplain for multiple reasons, right? Also because your political stances, they come to you, say, oh, I want to help, right? They say, oh, I want Frederick Douglass Foundation to help me, right? But then also the organization has to stay focused on its own mission, right? Yeah. But the thing is that how can the people who are involved in an organization make sure that they're still being heard without because this is really more for like the people who are beginning to learn to be activists, really as a reference point, right? To see, so if they're joining an organization, they feel like that organization is not being responsive to their needs. Like, what would be your recommendation for someone like that in that situation?
I
Because
want
you
to
know what
make.
I'm saying? Yeah. A
I
lot
want to
of
make.
people come to this channel saying, I want to become an activist or I need an activist. They're not finding one, so they got to figure out what to do. They join the organization really isn't helping them with their issue, right? So what do they do now?
Well, I mean, I would think it would depend. I mean, if you're gonna join an, I think there's different reasons to join an organization, right? I mean, if you're joining a
True.
specific organization because you want them to help you with your particular issue, I mean, should probably make sure that that's an issue that they deal with, right? I mean,
Right.
you'd have to, like, again, we are a pro-life organization. Pro-life, school choice, criminal justice reform from a constitutional and biblical worldview, mind you, not the shenanigans that the left does. Um, an economic equal, economic opportunity for everyone. So if somebody all of a sudden, those are our main ones. There's other stuff that, in history. If all of a sudden there's an activist that wants to talk about, you know, the environment, right, and how, which is a huge one. How do we conserve our environment? We're not going to be the organization for them, right? So if they're coming from a particular angle, then you got to find that group that is going to fit with that. Other people join our group because they believe in the cause and they want to make sure that you're supporting groups that are putting forward, something that you're doing, and how do you involve. The other thing I would say though is that if you see a group that has activists that are maybe doing what are doing a good job at it, you might want to join that group to get the training of how they train up their activists so that you could then take that to apply it to your own stuff, right? But I don't think that joining a group that doesn't necessarily represent what your issue is and then saying that they're not, you know, representing your needs is, that just might be a little bit backwards,
I
so
understand.
yeah,
Okay.
so I think that would probably be my answer, is make sure that you're finding a group that, and now if you're in a group that says, hey, you know, we're here to train up candidates, right? Like we train up candidates, and then uh, you are joining them thinking that you're going to get some help in activating candidates and they're not doing it. Well, then you take them to task and say, wait a second, I thought this is what you were said that you were supposed to be doing. And, you know, who's in charge here and how do we restructure this? You can either help them to be better or else you get out and go find someone better.
I understand. Okay. So the thing is that with the different let's say the activism that you've done, right? Um well, how can people find out more? Do you have like social media or do you like have like a website? I actually saw you had a show, something about seals. Is that show still running?
No, so yes and
Okay.
no. Uh,
Interesting.
called
All right.
Clubbing Seals. I have a podcast. Actually, it's going to be free soup now. Clubbing Seals is still there, but it was kind of it was a project between me and somebody else, and the somebody else is I was kind of out of things for the last couple of years because I had some health issues, and so they kind of took over. So I think Twitter is the only place you can find Clubbing Seals right now, and you can go on there, and it was two. I mean, we're not opposing views, but that, again, conversations, and we had a lot of battles back and forth, and over the last couple of years, he just kind of has taken over that. But you can find me, again, my name, Ayesha Kreutz. I'm on mostly Facebook. I try to do the Twitter thing. I might be too old for it, I don't know, but I'm trying. I did start a Twitter page, but I hardly ever am on there because I don't know how to speak in, you know 40 characters or however many they give you. And when I try to follow the threads, I don't do it that well. So I'm trying, but I'm trying to get better. So Facebook, Frederick Douglass Foundation is always the best way. www.fdfny.org is the website. and we're right in the, actually, our founder of the Frederick, we're a nationwide organization. We are in 15 different states right now and bring more on. That's one of the things that I do is I help onboard new states and new presidents, training them how to have a successful chapter. That's kind of what I do for the national organization, and that's fdfnational.org. So, but here in New York, that's kind of. But our founder died. One of the founders died, and so we're in a little bit of a transition. And so, even though we're still doing some door knocking in 3 or 4 states and other activism, a lot of stuff is just on hold until July. We're going to do a new whole um, a relaunch because we have a new chairman, Troy Rowling, who was one of the original 3 founders, but 2 of our founders just passed away over the last few years. So that was just, again, if you go to fdfny.org, though, you can see some of the work. We are always looking for new county leaders and volunteers to help do a lot of things. We can, obviously, the more people you have, the more you can do. We have a
Well,
lot of
tell them
people.
what they have to look forward to, right? What do you have anything planned and in the works? I think I'm actually part of that, but I know you actually work on several things. But go ahead. What do you have to
Yeah,
look forward to? Yeah.
yeah, we're working with a coalition called the Coalition to Protect Kids on the Equal Rights Amendment and getting that squashed off of the ballot. It's going really well right now. And then come 2025, we just might have to, we're going to keep going because they're going to bring it back. We are also working on a project called Project 2025 with the Heritage Foundation. Um, Getting people going against that 4th branch of unelected officials that get appointed. Um, so that is a huge project for us. And then as well, it's candidate season. So we have a few candidates that we're working with, trying to get them elected. And then one of my babies that I personally am very passionate about is the committeeman training. I think you mentioned something about it a little bit earlier, Rep My Block. So we've been doing committeeman training for uh, 10 years, probably trying to train people. If you have no other time to do anything else and to join nothing else, you should try to join your local committee, your political committee, whether you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, whatever it is. If you don't like the candidates that are coming out that you get to vote for in the general, you need to be teaching people that you have to be in a party in order to vote in the primary so that we get good people in the general. But
Okay.
also with
I got to ask some other questions. Yeah. So
sure,
I'm so sorry. Yeah. The thing is that now I'm going to go a little bit off script. Pretty much the regular online interview is over, but now we're just actually just chopping up. This does happen for some of the interviews. Now, the
sure.
thing is that I know you're upstate, and I know that actually being Republican, I know that upstate the Republicans are much, much more popular than here in New York City. The thing is that the Democrats do, however, control the state Senate, right? Yeah, they control the state assembly, but the Republicans may actually have elected leaders from those districts upstate. How are things? Can you guys really work to get? You're a county committee, right? So down here, they're responsible for judge selections. They're responsible for how the way that the voting goes forward, like back and forth, which machines get used. As you know, there's been some fraud claimed by citizens.
Audit.
So the thing, yeah. So what is the Republican County Committee? It's great that are you a district leader, by the way, or it seems like you might be.
No, so outside of the 5 boroughs, it is a little bit different. So we don't just have
Okay.
we have town committees or city committees, and then you have to get on your county committee as well if you wanted to be part of the county committee, and they're the ones that really handle like the same thing, right? The judgeships. So first you join your city committee or your town committee, um, and then you have to then be elected in order to get onto your county committee here, if that makes any sense. Again, it's a little bit different. And then we don't have district leaders, we just have county and city chairmen, right? So what your district leader would be our town or city committee chairman.
Yeah. Once you have control of that spot, that's going to be very powerful. You're going to be able to
Once
make a lot more things happen.
Yeah, if you're a county chairman, it's very powerful. If you're a town or city um, chairman, I mean, it's powerful in the sense that, yes, you then get to automatically sit on the county committee and then have a say to the county chairman. So again, it's just a little bit different. And then each one of your committee men, or again, precinct men, um, are just, I don't know, members of the committee.
Okay.
But as a committee man or as a committee person, you have a lot of power.
Yeah, I know.
Because
Okay. Yeah, that's
yeah, you're
yeah.
representing, you know, usually
That's why you're
150.
doing it. That's why you're doing the rep my block to exactly to take over that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're going
That's the move.
around,
Yeah.
and that goes back to your other question about the activism. Right now, I mean, most people don't take the county, or I mean the committeeman seat seriously. But if you did, that's how our founding fathers intended for it to happen.
Well, that's a
I'm ready.
central part of my activism. So we're gonna, my audience, we're gonna be keep working on that one. By the way,
Yeah,
it's gonna be very cool to have someone who's from, your area. I'm somewhat familiar with that area that you're in. I'm in New York City. Maybe we could actually have some statewide coalition here and really start to really empower each other and combine our teams together, right? So I'm super excited about that. I do have some other questions, and actually shout out to Winston Vigoda. I do saw, I was going through your stuff, right? Different, just looking up your background. I saw that you're actually a supporter of Israel. Am I correct?
yes, yes.
Okay. But you're a Christian. How does this really merge together? Just want to understand.
I mean that it stems from, so God said, "Those who bless Israel will be blessed; those who curse Israel will be cursed." I'm gonna bless Israel no matter what. You can call it selfish, no matter what. I'm getting my blessing. Y'all don't want your blessing, don't even worry about it. Like, don't support that. And from a historical perspective, that just takes on a different. Israel has the right to exist. Period. Just like America does, they have the right to defend themselves, and that's it. As far as their government obviously is very liberal. Um, I can criticize some of the things that they do while still maintaining they have the right to protect themselves and exist. So that's kind of where I come from. Again, I think that there are quite a few things governmentally, just like here in America, that I don't agree with. They're probably one of the most liberal governments that there are, and liberal is as far as like all the woke nonsense that I'm just not for. Um, they kind of do it to themselves, and as well, I mean, when we look at things like Gaza and what's going on there, they've kind of done it to themselves. They keep, they talk about how there's genocide being performed against the Muslims that are there, and yet, when they started out, there's a few hundred of them. Now there's millions of them. If they were trying to kill them and performing genocide, doing a really, really bad job. Okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah. There's actually
so
one question I did forget to ask during the online activist interview. I want to ask that now, actually. The thing is that if you knowing what you know now, right? Yeah, when you started your
yeah.
activist journey, you may have had like a different viewpoint or a different understanding. If
Hmm.
you could look back at someone who right now might be watching this and say, you know what, I'm in my own activist journey. What it could be a recent, breakthrough, or it could be something that really, if you went back to yourself at the very beginning, you could tell yourself something. Have you had like an insight that you want to share, right? Or you thought, and how did being an activist like change you in a way?
From an activist standpoint, um, if there is anything that, and so not political, you just mean from activism in the general sense of the term,
It could
correct?
be, right? Sometimes people's politics change as a result of, being involved or seeing things and doing things. Sometimes it's another thing, but
I
it's
would
really
say
up to you to answer. Yeah, any way you
always,
want.
yeah, always do the next right thing. It is very easy, especially within the activism political world, to counter, right, evil with evil, bad with bad, gossip with gossip. Your name is everything. You be true to who you are. Be the same in your bedroom, in your living room, in public. You be honest. and you go forward and you always do the next right thing, and you will see that then you will command the respect that you should. And those people who don't, right? That's why they fall away to the wayside. I would say that's number one. Number two, do not believe the hype. This is a political thing. I wish I would have gotten earlier when I started my journey. In New York, they're like, oh, right, if they're a Republican, vote for them anyway. Lies. Flat out lies. I don't care if you have an R behind your name. If you suck, you suck. Okay, I'm a Republican. Same with Democrats, whatever. It's not about what is the policy. And if you have a Democrat who switched parties to become a Republican, they're not going to tell you this is what they did. And now they're running on Democrat policies as a Republican. That person is not better than the Democrat. They're actually worse because they're watering down your party, your policies, and vice versa, right? So this is, if you're a Democrat listening, same thing. If it's a conservative, again, that doesn't matter what party you're in. These people, and I believed it in the beginning. I believe that I vote for the Republican no matter what because they're the better person. And if that was true, New York would be a red state. It's a lie from the
Right.
pit of hell. And I wish I would have seen it earlier, because probably the first 5 or 6 years I was involved, I was like, yeah, you always do it. It's disloyalty to the party to vote for people that are destroying our party from the inside out. Those are the two things I would say, um, that I think, if you're going to be an activist, don't get caught up in the hype.
Well, the leadership has their own, priorities and, positions, and it's
Yep.
not always going to be the same, even between you and me. So really, I really like what you're doing. You're empowering yourself and really
And
putting yourself right to,
DJ, iron sharpens iron, and we have to remember that. What happens when iron sharpens iron? People don't think about this. I'll tell you, because but sparks fly. One of the right, that's what we're supposed to do, is we have conversations amongst ourselves that are like, oh, wait a second, right? It's like think tank stuff. We're talking about, hey, you're here, you're here. When we're talking about criminal justice reform, I'm going to give you an example of that. There are things in the criminal justice system that need to be reformed, period. And people don't want to talk about those things, and I'm going to give you one, right? Again, we don't talk about this. I don't know the answer to it because we don't talk about it. Why do you have so many people, right? He's like, oh, I'm gay, coming out of jail. I'm not gay. I was just having gay sex in jail. I'm Christian. I believe one man, one woman, one time. I believe that you have sex while you're married. But when you're in jail, these people want to have sex. We should not be turning people into animals and queers in jail and turning people out. There has to be some solution. It's human nature. You're sticking people in jail for 20, 30 years, even 5 years. They're obviously not saved. I mean, that's not true. Some of them could be. If they wanted to have abstinence, just like out here, we should be having conversations about that. How do you take people out of one criminal gang environment and put them in another gang environment? We should be talking about that. We know,
yeah.
research shows us time after time after time that if you keep somebody in jail for 30 years, the recidivism rate is extraordinarily high. They get institutionalized. We can't keep doing the same thing, right? We don't talk about that. Instead, we're talking about some bail reform, putting criminals back out with no accountability. Let's talk
Actually, I have actually a very some very cool allies in this regard. The thing is that Pennsylvania, which is a key swing state, by the way, one of this lady named Chinchilla Joneses has had candidate forums, and she actually mayoral debates and things like that, which is incredible. Remember, that's a swing state that determined the presidential election in the last 2020, right? After they called it, that's when they decided that the election was called for Biden. Very key state. The thing is that she also has a radio show. I think it would be cool if you get on there. She's also registered Republican, and the thing is that they actually supported a Korean American named I think Peter or David O or something like that, who's running for mayor of Pennsylvania, who's Republican. But what you might not be happy to hear about, right, is actually he was against stop and frisk. But maybe that's good or bad, right? But maybe there's some interesting ways to move forward. These are some of the longest wrongfully incarcerated men in nation history. And by the way, a federal court has shown that Letitia James is actually breaking constitutional law by allowing by shutting down discussion about prosecutorial misconduct. And there's a letter from the DA's office saying that erroneous evidence was used to convict Nolan Farrell, and instead of and that's 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, we have evidence of us having that letter and all that, and he's still not getting exonerated. Meanwhile, they're messing with Trump for political reasons on some case that is like really old. The priorities of the is political. It's not actually like really getting justice. And they're saying they're helping, you know, wrongfully convicted people, right? They're not helping them. Exactly like you said. So the victims right there with decades. And the recidivism rate, these people, by the way, some of them were in there, a lot of them for rape charges, right, where the DNA proved them innocent, like Vincent Motor, the first man free, and they're often victimized in prison. And, you know, that's something we don't really talk about. But, you know, and why would they want to talk about it? I get it too. You know, it's really, that's really hard to talk about. But the fact of the matter is that we have to protect them. And we have to be real about what's going on. So I appreciate you in that.
Yep, I do. I agree on that. And again, if we could start having these conversations more and more.
One more thing I just want to throw into is I also have a tie to actually a police officer who actually has a tie to Serpico, because the thing is that he actually whistle blew on corruption going on in the Flushing Police Department, where actually they caused a reexamination of the Knapp Commission. So the thing is that we're working on a policy, right? There were two policies that we're working on, right? Along with the Pennsylvania people. We're working for exoneration. People want to come down on Texas, and it's true that Texas has a high, you know, death row, like people getting killed, but they're also number one in exonerations, right? When they mess up, and not only that, but they also are the number one in the country with the best compensation program for people that have been wrongfully incarcerated. So we're trying to actually get this, you know, nationally instituted. And the one from Serpico says the police cannot police themselves, right? Because the mayor. So I'm not saying, right, that all cops are bad. This is ridiculous, right? They have a function in society, but let's not be unfair to them and ask them to have a pressure that no one should really have. Let's have some type of, like, you know, review from outside agencies, not trying to be unfair, or, you know, let's just be fair and do everything above board.
Yeah, and how that would look, or what that would look like. Again, I've seen some that are way too far one way or another, but again, as I said, if we were having the conversation and having a reasonable conversation about it, I think we would find a reasonable solution. And you have to have conservatives, Republicans willing to have that conversation instead of sticking their heads in the ground, right?
We have discussion panels coming up with presidential candidates, and you're definitely invited. And you can invite other people, and if that can help your getting people involved to run for county committee, like them having access to presidential candidates and just feeling they're more politically involved, then they're definitely welcome. I'm very excited to meet you. And I want to really set this interstate kind of communications and political backbone.
Let me just tell you too, just, you know, because you'd mentioned it, but I wanted to interject just before we have to go. But so, although I understand stop and frisk and why, and again, I get it, and I'm like, yeah, it sounds good on the face of it. It's unconstitutional though, and we either have to say that we believe in the Constitution or not. And you know, just saying, oh, somebody looks suspicious, and so that I can just stop them and frisk them with no, you know, what does suspicious look like? You know what I mean? Like, I think that.
Can I share with you my personal view on that?
So I'll just put. You had mentioned you didn't know where I stood on it, and so I'm just sharing. You know, I get the whole thing, and yes, I know that you catch a lot of criminals, but again, there's got to be a better way.
You know, I don't worry about that stuff, because really, in the end, people are going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to call it something else. I wasn't stop and frisk. I saw him do something, or he looked like this picture. They're going to, you know, I mean, people are going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to reinvent it or reclassify as something else. So the fact of the matter is that I really like what you're, once again, at a fundamental level, people are empowering themselves. That's what this program is all about, giving people the power themselves. Right? I'm not your savior, right? Yeah, I'm not perfect, right? Yeah, and you need to be able to protect yourself. I won't have the same priorities or positions as you. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but
if I'm really your friend,
how do we collaborate? How do I help you be better, be the best that you can be, so that you can be successful in the things that you're doing, even if some exact thing that I'm doing, and hopefully, if people keep in mind, right, that the student, we should want the student to exceed the teacher. And that's a problem that we have too. If I'm helping, training, teaching, lifting you up, and then all of a sudden it's not my business. Again, I come from a biblical worldview. That's God's thing. If he calls you up and not me, I should still be there to lift your arms, get on my hands and knees so you can sit down on my back, whatever it is, because that's your time. And instead of us thinking that it's a competition between one or the other, say, hey, let's have the race together and we'll do it. And I'm going to keep doing what I have to do, even if it's the same thing. But if you're the one that's succeeding, thank you. How do I help you? We have to
Yeah.
stop being crabs in a barrel.
I got a friend in Albany as well, like near Albany as well. So I'm going to try to link us all up, and we'll have someone downstate New York. We'll have someone over by Western New York, and we'll have someone by Central New York, right? Maybe that would be very cool. So let's set that up. Yeah, I'm very excited to meet you.
Yeah.
And now that I understand you a little bit better, now I can really understand how we can really work together and how we work together. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
And I love that you say
thank you.
after everything. And I'm probably going to be like, yeah. I don't know what it is, but I keep on going, yeah. I don't know. I like that. Like, am I going to start saying that? If I do, you're going to be like, man, that girl bit off me.
Nah, it's all good. Yeah. Sometimes I go through different phases. So I go through a little thing where I'll say yeah all the time, then it'll be something else. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know. I like it.
All right, cool.
All right.
So it's very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah. Thank you.
God bless.